Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, where we help practice owners become better entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dino Watt. And once again, everybody, welcome to the Propreneur Podcast. Excited to have you here for another episode where we're going to dive into some things that I'm personally super fascinated about, and I hope that you will be too. Thank you very much for all of our listeners, and for those of you that have shared this podcast with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to follow us on both Facebook and Instagram, and for those of you adventurous people, TikTok as well. But we'd love to hear from you and hear how this podcast is affecting you. I was grateful this last week, actually. I just got an email from someone who talked about how they've listened to some episodes and they've really enjoyed the conversational aspect of our show, which is really my goal. I want it to be something to where it's not super rigid, but more conversational, as if we were having a conversation with you in your car or in your ears as you're working out. So thank you again for joining us on the show. Today, we actually have a double guest, meaning that this is the second time that they've been on our show. So you might remember them from the last time, but this time we're going to talk about something even, I don't even know how to say even cooler, but as cool as we did before, if not more futuristic, I think, or what's coming down the pipe. So ladies and gentlemen, if you remember, Mart McClellan, sorry, I said that wrong. Mart McClellan is joining us today. And last time we talked all about wealth and how to make sure you and your dental practice are growing more wealth and investing. We're going to talk about that today too, but we're going to talk about it in a totally different, new way. So Mart, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dino. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's always good to have you. And we've fought for this interview, I'll tell you that, between me having COVID and different scheduling mess-ups. So I'm super excited to have you here. Tell us, though, remind us all about your background and your story of how you got to where you're doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, I'm an orthodontist. I finished up in early 90s and just went out like all the people on this podcast and went out to private practice and developed some relationships with some financial advisors. And after a number of years, I came across the path of one gentleman who is actually a good friend of my wife's also a dentist, her dental lab school lab mate. And he was a financial advisor, said, hey, you should meet with this guy. And that was, in the late 90s. And so he and I met and we became clients with his. And after going through the .com crash, where everybody's losing quite a bit of money during that time, we were doing quite well through that event. And so in 2004, I said, hey, this model that you presented me at that time really actually worked like you presented. And I said, hey, would you mind if we got this information out to the dental world and the orthodontic world? Because we're just not trained in any of this information in dental school or even before that time. And so Tim Stride, my partner, we partnered up and started Macro Wealth in 2004. And we've been doing it for 18 years now, and we're registered investment advisors, fiduciaries, and all that good stuff. And we just recently brought the topic we're talking about today onto our platform with cryptocurrencies. And so we're obviously very, very excited about that. And I got engaged with crypto or Bitcoin, 8 years ago in 2014.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been a part of my portfolio for a long time. I've always believed it. I truly believe when people, if they start really getting a firm understanding of what it is and they go down that rabbit hole, they'll see the significant benefits behind it. So I'm very excited to sort of share that with your listeners today.
Yeah,
it's going to be a fun discussion.
Well, I'm excited because it is something that I've been kind of looking at, dabbling in a little bit here and there. Wish I would have been doing that 8 years ago, as you were talking about. As a matter of fact, we had a little bit of a pre-discussion, and I was talking about our dinner guest last night. It was a friend of mine who's been around for a while and been friends with for a while. And he started in crypto back in like 2012. And I remember him talking to us about it and being like, hey, you should do this and that. And we've been in contact, but not had, like, we've been building a house and all this crazy stuff for the last couple of years. So we had him over for dinner last night, and I was like, man, tell me how that's working out. And he said, yeah, I was doing great. And then I kind of dropped it for a while and I lost my password and I couldn't figure out how to get in my wallet. But long story short, he figured it out. And when he opened up the wallet after like 4 years or 5 years, his $4,000 investment now is like 50 grand. And he was like, yeah, that's a good return on my investment. Right. So I've been interested since then and not, it's confusing. It seems like it's a little above my pay grade on a lot of things. So I'm excited to have you kind of walk us through it a little bit and share how not only it works, but also how doctors can use this inside of their business. I want to ask you a question though, because I want to link this back to your book. I want to make sure everybody gets your book and goes up to get your book, which is the Your Retirement Smile book. Are you updating it to talk about crypto in there? Are you going to do a whole different book about it, or how's this going to play into it?
Well, it's interesting. We actually, it is mentioned in our book when we wrote it a couple of years ago, just because I had some prior knowledge of it. But it's not a very deep dive into it whatsoever. It just sort of fits within one of the sort of quote asset classes that we look at. So to answer your question, it's funny you asked that. My partner and I, we've been talking about writing another book and sort of blending some of this information into it and seeing if we can pull that off.
Well,
so yeah,
it's a hot topic. So I would totally do it. That's great. Also,
well, it's interesting too. You said your buddy sort of he sort of dropped it after 4 or 5 years, wasn't paying attention. That sort of happened to me as well in 2014 when I first invested in it. I was excited, and then of course I bought a number of Bitcoins, and then it dropped like about 50% like in 2 months. I'm like, right. Oh, well, so much for that investment. So
and that's really exactly what he said too. The exact same timing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I sort of just tabled it. I just really just said like, oh, that's just one of those things. I'll just, let go, whatever. And 2 years later, one of my good friends, John Graham, was speaking at an OrthoVoice meeting, and we were speaking with him at the same meeting. And he gets up on stage to speak, and he's wearing a Bitcoin t-shirt. He goes, "Did you know Bitcoin just hit $5,000?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" I got to go back and look at my passwords, my wallet. Like, here we are, and I found him. I'm like, all right. So that was sort of my re-engagement of the crypto at that time.
That's awesome. I don't remember last time when we spoke. You'll have to refresh me. Did we? I mean, I think it's really a unique position to have yourself in, that you were an orthodontist or still am an orthodontist, and yet you added this financial wellness part to what you do, right? And I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that talk finances, or they hire their guy. You actually didn't just hire them. You decided, no, I want to be a part of this. Well, I'm very curious about the catalyst to what made you go, you know what, I could hire my friend and keep doing what we're doing because obviously we're successful, or I could go to school more and learn how to do this and do it myself. What was the thought there?
I think the catalyst was in so many times in the medical and dental world, doctors are looked at as easy targets, and so I think the trust factor. So true. I think the trust factor in the financial service industry is very low, and I felt that, hey, I'm in the trenches with my colleagues each and every day, and I just didn't think there's a better trust level than have one of my, to help my colleagues along the same path. And I couldn't go to the meetings that that you go to and speak at, and all those good things, and sort of look at my colleagues in the eye saying, hey, this guy's is taking advantage of me. So I was just fortunate to come across this process. It's evidence-based. People believe in evidence-based dentistry or orthodontics, yet nobody believes about evidence-based financial planning, because if they did, they really wouldn't do half the things they're doing. And so I'm very proud of the system we have, because we can just verify everything we say, and with no opinion, no sales hype. It is what it is, and people can take action on it or not. Money is a very emotional thing. It's also economic. So many times emotions overtake the economics, but it's our job to at least share with them the economics behind that.
Wow, what you said is so true. Like I totally connect with that whole predatory thing. I remember first coming into this industry about a decade ago and hearing, knowing what's going on in other industries, because I came from those industries and I study those industries still, and then hearing everything from websites to financial planning of how I call them predatory, right? Like, geez, you're paying 10 grand for that website. That's, that doesn't make any sense. I know at least 10 guys who can do that for 3, right? The same thing. And so it's really interesting there. And then I wonder, do you guys do any type of auditing to help people to see how their financial plan is working for them?
Yeah. So the system we have is it's almost a financial simulator. And so we can input information. It's proprietary to the folks. We did not invent it, but it's the proprietary to the folks who did develop it. And so we can audit what they did in the past, and then we can also, and even more powerful, the past is the past. We can simulate different modeling scenarios based on the future. Whether or not inflation's doing what it's doing. Hey, inflation was 2, now it's 7. Or what happens if interest rates go up, or what happens if tax laws change, or you have a premature, a health issue, a disability, or
Yeah.
car accident, whatever. You can simulate, or expensive weddings. People have very expensive weddings at times. So there's many different things you can input into the model, and I think that sort of differentiates just financial planning in general. Is like, so many people look at financial planning in a linear manner, like I'm going to do this and get this in the end, but there's nothing linear about financial planning. It's all dynamic. There's so many different pieces of the puzzle working at the same time that you have to just be fully aware of, how each of those decisions impact each other, and having the simulator enables us to do that.
Well, I have a buddy, Jim Dew out of Arizona, and he says, is your financial planner a planner or historian? And most of them will come to you after the well, I had a bad month, so sorry. Or, oh, this year we did this. They're not really planning out that future. And so he's like, you want that person who is the planner, who's fortune teller. Anybody can be a historian.
Yeah.
So
that's, we almost don't even like using the word planner. We're more like strategist. It's like,
nice.
how do we strategize ourselves for the future? A lot of plans, a lot of plans go south pretty quickly based on a bad economic circumstance.
What's that Mike Tyson quote, right? Everybody's got a plan till you get punched in the face.
100%. We use that in our presentations when we lecture, because there's a lot of truth to that.
So, okay, let's get into the crypto idea of stuff, because this is definitely a hot topic right now. Cryptocurrency, Coinbase, all these ones, NFTs are coming out now too, which I actually, being an orthodontist, you might get this, but I have a friend who's really big into NFTs right now. And for those of you that don't understand NFTs, basically, long story short, is being able to put your stamp on something and get a residual off of that forever. I thought, how could a dentist or an orthodontist do that on like implants for dentistry, or like it's not like they're trading those, right? But it's customize the thing. But anyway, so NFTs, crypto, all this stuff. Talk to me about, well, let's do a quick little overview of what really is cryptocurrency and why is it the big deal, and why is it not, in your opinion, just a nice little fad that's happening for right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, the first cryptocurrency was Bitcoin. And you sort of have to ask, why? I mean, why was Bitcoin even developed? And it came out in 2009 after the 2008 debacle and the crash then. And in order to really understand, what Bitcoin does in the future, you have to understand, what money has done in the past. And, the history of money, whether it's beads, cattle, shells, gold, silver, and when the Romans in the Roman age, they debased the coin. There's in all forms of money, they've always been debased over time. And so when you understand money, you have to have a couple of concepts of, they have to have, is it a medium of exchange? Is it a store of value? Is it divisible? And there are a number of other things. Is it durable, and so forth and so on. And, Bitcoin really checks off all those boxes, as well as any other monetary piece in the history of money. And so that's why I'm so excited about it, because it's decentralized. And so, when we say decentralized, there's no one overarching entity or corporation or governmental piece that has any control over it. It's controlled by the people of the world, so to say. And so there's no opportunity to debase it and actually
manipulate it.
Manipulate it. Exactly. I mean, see what's being on. 40% of the entire monetary supply has been printed in the last 18 months. And people wonder why inflation is getting out of control. It's something that history's always done with money. And Bitcoin has created its store of value is that it's scarce. I mean, there are only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be created. And we're already in the world of about high 18 millions. And of those 18 millions, many of those have already been lost because, like, your friend says, hey, did I lose my password? People lose their password, they lose their computer. So, and the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, who is an unknown character or person or group of people, we don't really know, is holding 1 million of those Bitcoin, and just as their store value. So, so people know at some point in time, in I think the year 2140 is when all the Bitcoin will be mined. One Bitcoin's mined every 10 minutes. And so they know that, if you're invested in it or have one or a half of one or a tenth of one, that it's going to hold its value significantly better than the fiat or the dollar that's being created, not only in the United States, but all around the world. I mean, there's countries printing money, like crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And, at some point in time, and it's already sort of there in terms of the amount of money that's been printed and our ability to sort of grow our way out of it. It's almost impossible. So Bitcoin sort of solves all those problems. And
well, I think the solving for me, what I like about it is the idea that it's, as you said, like a fiat currency is based on what a group of people say that thing is worth. Mm-hmm. Whereas like a house, right? Even right now with the real estate market and stuff like that, it's like if somebody's willing to pay it, all of a sudden it goes up in value. But the difference with the Bitcoin is that it can't be manipulated just by one person's thought or a downturn in the economy or something like that. And the idea around it being only a certain amount of Bitcoin, it reminds me of, I don't remember who said it. I'm sure you remember, like somebody mentioned before, land. They're not making any more of it, so buy it. And so just like land value becomes more wanted and desired and higher because there's only one earth. They're not building more land. So just like that with crypto, you're getting a very specific amount, and then it's going to increase based upon the need for it.
Yeah, 100%. And, that whole thing of fiat, to your point, the governments in today's world, they can just print the money out of thin air. There's nothing really truly backing it. I mean, that
not gold before.
Yeah, it all ended in 1971 when President Nixon took us off the gold standard. And so, it used to be, it was worth, whatever denomination of gold that was worth, but not anymore. Right. So really the only thing that's backing up the US dollar is the full faith and credit of the US government.
Right.
And that's pretty much the extent of it. So, I mean, if people have that credit, but obviously it's still the reserve currency of the world, who knows if that will continue to be the case. And so, that's going to be a wait and see. But the scarcity of Bitcoin really provides the significant value to it.
So let's talk about the exchange of Bitcoin and how to actually use Bitcoin. When somebody, and we hear on news or whatever, like my friend, hey, I put 4,000 in and lo and behold, I got 40 grand, it's like, and you hear about those stories, but what's the actual, being able to exchange, to use, to buy stuff off of this? And for those of you listening, our goal on this episode is to really get the understanding of how you can potentially use Bitcoin or any other type of currency like cryptocurrency as in your office and have clients pay with Bitcoin, and you receive that Bitcoin or parts of it anyway, or the bits of it, they can pay you through their Bitcoin. And so let's talk about how does that actually work, the exchange of the Bitcoin?
Yeah. So on the individual side, there's a couple onboarding ramps for people, American investors to consider. Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini. These are exchanges where you connect your bank account to them, and then you just move. It's just a transfer of money from your checking or savings account over to Coinbase. And these exchanges are called centralized exchanges, and so they are sort of controlled by a certain entity. And then you can take those funds and invest in a number of different cryptocurrencies, whatever may be on those particular exchanges. And there may be 10, 20, 30, 40, hundreds of different cryptocurrencies to choose from. And, typically the first place that at least we advise for folks who are just dipping their toes into it would be to, pick up some Bitcoin and pick up some Ethereum and just sort of get comfortable with it. But at the same token, one of the beauties of Bitcoin is the nature of it is being decentralized. Well, we like to sort of get the money off those centralized exchanges, then move them over to sort of decentralized exchanges, or at least places where nobody has access to those tokens. And that falls into something called a wallet. There are different types of wallets. There's a cold wallet and a hot wallet. A cold wallet's like a USB. Plug it into your computer, and then it comes into your computer and it just reloads right into your USB. And that's like a brick of gold. And so that's yours and only yours, and you can put it in your safety deposit box and nobody else will ever have access to it. And then there's something called a hot wallet, which is a computer program. Something like Exodus is an excellent hot wallet. It's free. And you just download it on your computer, and then you can connect your Coinbase to your Exodus, and you can move your Bitcoin over to there. Now it's sort of not susceptible to the centralized exchanges, hackers, or anybody who wants to get into that centralized. Now it's just your particular fund. Now, of course, since it is still connected to the internet, there still is some potential for access from nefarious people. And that's one of the things that sort of scares people about crypto in general. Years ago, we wrote an article for Dental Economics called "The Wild Wild West of Crypto," because it was primarily just individual investors. There was no institutional people, no big boys in the space. And then we just finished writing an article a couple number of months ago. It's become the industrial revolution now. We're sort of evolving. We're evolving to a different place in crypto, but at the same token, you're still kind of on your own. There's really not a lot of quote customer service people to call to resolve issues that you may have. Some places are better than others, but that is the concern. So to your question on the dental space, I looked at years ago, I would have loved, and I still would love to have my patients pay for me in cryptocurrency. That would be just fantastic. And there are a number of onboarding ramps of people coming on board to do that. I just recently picked up a Visa credit card through BlockFi, where you earn Bitcoin just for using the credit card. And I'm very confident in MasterCard's in that space as well, and other credit card. And there's other crypto companies making their own credit cards. One called Unbanked. They're doing their own. And so
so if I were to go into a store even and I had that credit card, I would use it like a normal credit card, but instead of it would just take it out of my crypto wallet or bank as opposed to my normal bank account.
Yeah, you could do it either way. You can pay it back in crypto, or you can pay it back in fiat if you like. And
wow.
so then people, just depends on, I kind of like my Bitcoin. I'll just pay that back in fiat. Matter of fact, so even like the BlockFi card, first 3 months you get 3.5% back on your Bitcoin. And so all weekend I was up at our cabin all weekend, and I was paying for gas and doing all kinds of stuff with everything, put it on that card, and then you can use that sort of as a rewards program. Years ago in my practice, and I still have my frequent flyer. I mean, we love frequent flyers. I mean, orthodontists and dentists, gosh, they put tens of thousands of dollars a month on these cards. And wouldn't it be, and we all know those miles are very valuable. We love the miles. We flew all over the country for free, so to say. But man, wouldn't it be great to have some of those miles in Bitcoin or in other cryptocurrencies? Heck yeah. So I'm sort of trying to transition the best I can a lot of my credit cards over there, but they have different credit limits and all these other things. It's still in the infancy of this space, but it's something certainly, you said dipping your toes on Coinbase, dipping your toes into a credit card would be fantastic. And I think dental offices and orthodontic practices most of them accept credit cards right now.
They can do that.
They're going to do that. And so it's going to be tremendous.
How does it work? Like I'm going into your office, I've got one of those cards. Yes, it's coming out of my crypto wallet. I'm having it come out of my crypto wallet, but it's going to you as a fiat, or can you tell it, I want to accept it as a crypto as well?
Well, it goes to you as a fiat. Okay. Presently.
So you as the doctor would go to you as a fiat.
As a fiat, just like their normal credit card, American Express, all the cards are used now, it goes to them fiat.
Yes. But if I wanted to pay you in crypto, how could you accept my crypto?
Well, then you'd have to set up some type of like a company wallet. You'd have to set up some type of receiving mechanism to receive that crypto, and then you'd have to have a. And this is also in infancy too. And as of last year, it's really getting quite big. You'd have to have crypto tax software to sort of talk with that wallet, so that your accountants will be fully aware of. Because accountants have no idea on this. You talked about accountant, and you got to pay your taxes. So it's like you need to have some software programs to. There's a lot of them out. There's Coinly, there's Node 40. There's a lot of really, really good ones that I like that people can use and feel that's what's going to be their best flavor. But it all has to be sort of squared up from a tax standpoint.
Well, see, this is why you got to write the book, because then you got all these little information, all these little bits of information there, this place to go. Okay, so where do you see this going? Like, it's not going away. It's one of the things that I was thinking of when you were talking was that it's the fastest growing technology in human history,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not going away anytime soon. Where do you see it going in the sense of, as a practitioner, how you're going to use this in your practice, as a patient, how you can market to that? Where do you see it going?
Well, yeah, it's probably one of the greatest discoveries in mankind. You know, it's right along there with the printing press and the telescope and electricity and the internet. I'm of the belief that it's going to be even bigger than the internet, and so the underlying technology is the blockchain, and so it's not going away. You know, and it's just a matter of in the future the amount of adoption that's going to be created. You know, as more and more of these people come on board, and so Wall Street and a lot of these governments are now sort of embracing crypto, and so their issues is regulatory requirements and all these issues they're trying to mire themselves through because they're on the hook for that. But countries like El Salvador, if you've heard, El Salvador is now using Bitcoin as their currency.
Yeah.
Rio is using Bitcoin using a percentage of their treasury in Bitcoin. Miami is becoming one of the Bitcoin capitals of the world. You know, they have their own Miami coin.
Wow.
And so as cryptocurrency becomes more adopted in the entire world, the weirdest thing about when I first got engaged with it, there's only maybe 20 million people using cryptocurrency. And heck, you know, now it's maybe up around 300 million, upwards of 300 million in the whole world. I mean, there's 7-8 billion people in the world. So it's still very, very much in its infancy. And these, as we talked about earlier, there's a lot of smart characters in this space, and there are thousands of different cryptocurrencies. There's actually a Denta coin out there.
Wow.
You know, and they're trying to use, and I've spoken with them, and they're trying to your point, use their token as a mechanism for payments and marketing and, you know, games and things to sort of bridge cryptocurrencies to the dental space. So they're working on it. I don't know if they're going to make it. I mean, most cryptocurrencies, there's thousands, are not all that good.
Right.
So you just have to be very aware of the ones that have the really solid platforms and the ones that really provide a lot of utility. There's a lot of great supply chain ones out there. So, you know, then people talk about dental supplies. In my practice, it's been brutal getting products delivered to my office and the supply chain glut. And so there's actually cryptocurrencies that can track it. You can actually figure out, you know, where things are. And it's,
wow.
It's going to be touching on every little different aspect of it.
Does that mean though that we're going to have to keep track of multiple currencies? Like if you've got thousands of currencies out there, I'm assuming in the next, you know, let's say 10 years, a lot of them are going to be whittled down. But if people can create their own currency this way, obviously there's a lot of money invested into creating a certain coin. But does this mean we're going to have like multiple tracking systems? It's not just like saying, oh, I've got a $5, a $10, and a $20 bill. Now I've got my crypto, I've got my Ethereum, I've got my whatever, Dogecoin, all that stuff. So are we going to have to learn how to track all these things too?
Yeah. How I sort of see all this sort of shaking itself out is I sort of see Bitcoin as the store of value, sort of like the gold of today or of the past, shall I say. And then I do think there'll be certain other cryptocurrencies that may be sort of the ways to make payments, you know, small payments or faster payments or cheaper payments. And what will happen is I think you'll make a decision on which one you're going to feel most comfortable with. So you don't have to sort of, you know, have all these different coins coming in. And I think what will happen eventually too is that if you're a dental office or orthodontic practice and you say, well, we accept Bitcoin, we accept Ethereum, or we accept whatever it may be, Digibyte, whatever it may be, there'll be swapping protocols. There'll be protocols that will able to swap those. So maybe somebody doesn't have Bitcoin or they have another coin that is not familiar to that particular dental office. Well, the office will definitely have a mechanism to swap it and say, all right, we're going to just flip it over to the coin that we're
we
going to
prefer.
use. But think about it too now. I mean, orthodontic, almost all dental practices, even business for that matter. You walk into the store, you walk to the office, you'll see Visa card, MasterCard, American Express, and those are
So
sort
it'll
of
be like that. I'll just be swapping over like that. Oh,
those are sort of three different channels of payment that people accept, and they just manage it that way.
That's interesting. That's a good point. Is that it's like we already do that. This is just going to be the learning curve of getting it down to a certain amount of coins, and to be able, if you can have a swapping mechanism, like you said, where, yeah, I have X amount of dollars in my Dogecoin, but you're accepting Bitcoin, then it'll just swap it over to that based upon the value.
Yeah. And the incredible thing is too, and since another absolutely beautiful thing about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, it's a peer-to-peer network. So it's really from one person to another. So it doesn't have to go through, people don't realize when you put your credit card payment, all the different places that dollar goes, in order for you to get that payment. It'll take 4 or 5 different stops, different banks, and the federal bank and the regional bank, and then the local bank, and the credit. I mean, it's all these different steps. And so obviously with all those different steps, what does that do? That increases fees.
Yeah.
So that the fees are higher. So I think what you're going to find is when not just dentistry, but the industries in general start embracing cryptocurrency as a payment mechanism, they're going to be saving just a ton of money on fees alone. I mean, that just our margins are all being really kind of shrunk here recently with inflation the way they are.
Sure.
And wage inflation with employees and such. And so, every little percent we can sort of squeeze out to, of profitability is going to be to our benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I'm a orthodontist or dentist. I hear this on the podcast. I come to you to help me do what when it comes specifically around the crypto idea, adding that to my current portfolio. How does that look? What am I coming to you for?
Yeah. So from an investment standpoint, I think one of the most important things, I think I mentioned previously, we believe in, evidence-based research and such. And a couple of years ago, a group out of San Francisco, Bitwise, wrote a research paper, and they did a research paper on the last 5 years of the S&P 500 and 60/40 portfolio. And what does adding like 1% of Bitcoin to that portfolio do to your performance? And 1% is obviously not much of anything, but what it did was over that 5-year time frame, it practically doubled the rate of return, but the standard deviation or the volatility around that rate of return remained the same, or it was essentially the same, if not a little bit less. So what that was telling you is by not having cryptocurrency Bitcoin in your portfolio, you're actually kind of hurting your investment performance. And so we hang our head on some of those type of research, and people will be upwards. They won't even do 1%. That once you start going in a rabbit hole, people want more and more.
Sure.
And when we on board people have an interest in getting cryptocurrency, a lot of people just say, I just want to feel it out. And so we'll help them on board through Coinbase or the other exchanges. There are some apps out there because if both people are involved with cryptocurrencies, they certainly understand there are some nuances and some complications that a lot of dentists and orthodontists don't want to deal with, like passwords and all these wallets and all these things that don't make sense. So there are some apps out there that it's like a crypto fund. You can invest on your phone on different metaverse or DeFi portfolios. We have a hedge fund that we brought on board a couple of years ago. I think we're the first company in the country to offer a crypto in the dental space.
Oh, interesting.
And they have it's a turnkey. So people say, hey, I just don't want to deal with all the things you talked about before. I just want to invest like an Ameritrade account or an E-Trade account or my investment account, brokerage account, and they just fill out an application and they send the money in, and then they get a suite of numerous different investments, whether it's the big ones, the large coins, or the small coins. Those are different funds. And
so they can already do that inside of their retirement accounts.
Yeah. So if they have, it's a great place for like a Roth IRA. If they're doing like backdoor Roths and things like that. Yeah. That volatility fits very well in that type of plan, just because there's no taxation on any of that. So the space is just moving into the 401k arena. So that's not really all that not available as it is, but it's kind of tough because there's so many different nuances with engaging team members and them understanding crypto. And whereas an IRA is like yours. And so you can say, all right, I want to do this. This is my personal account, blah, 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 blah. And so, so they, they'll do that with the crypto fund, or they'll just do it themselves. And, another cool thing is in the crypto, something called stable coins, and stable coins is like a money market account where it's pegged to the dollar. Mm-hmm. And, in today's world, and you go to money market at your bank, you may get maybe 1%. These stable coins, which runs on the same type of platform, essentially, they're paying out 6 to 12%. So a lot of people will put their liquidity, as opposed to keeping it in a bond, which is kind of a net zero now with inflation, or even a money market. They'll put some of their money into these stable coin funds, whether it's through Coinbase or wherever it may be. There's lots of places for stable coins.
Wow, that's cool. Like it just shows that the future of what we're going to be able to do is definitely moving forward. When these big companies, these big banks, like you said, even the credit cards earlier, and if these retirement accounts and these funds are looking at either currently are or looking at ways of where they can do that, that's going to be huge and just opening up so much opportunity for so many people.
Yeah, it's going to be exponential. I mean, it's cryptocurrencies gives access to people. Don't realize around the world that the majority of the world is unbanked. They don't have a bank. There's no bank to go to. And so now, but most of them have phones. Most of them have a phone, right? And so now, these banking institutions all around the world, now they'll be able to share banking privileges with people from all over the world, people in Africa, South America, who've had no access. And another thing too is like the wiring of money. When a lot of people, are in America and they have family in Mexico, and the wiring services for those are just hundreds of millions, just tons of money being spent there. And you can cut those wiring. You can send these types of transactions just for pennies compared to like hundreds of dollars per transaction. So the adoption and the utility of this technology is just, we're just at the beginning.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, I'm glad that people like you are out there and understand this, not only for in the general terms of understanding the crypto, but especially talking to, listen, I think that there's a bit of a concern in the industry at this point with DSOs, with practices maybe not being as valuable to a new potential buyer, an associate, because of either the competition or the market, or like you said, inflation. And so this just gives people another opportunity to grow their wealth and to secure themselves for the future in a different way, and really growth in a way that we've never seen before. So it's really, really been exciting and interesting. And I'm glad that they have people like you to go to. And I'm going to highly encourage you to write your book about this.
Yeah, we got to get on it. It is extremely exciting. And we tell people all the time, the thing about cryptocurrency, it's just a piece of the puzzle, and it's a management of all the stocks and equities and real estate and businesses and how it gets all cobbled together. And, but I do believe, people see that equities have been doing very well. Stocks have been really doing quite well, but they just don't move quite the way. You have to have a little stomach for the volatility in the crypto space. But as long as you can stomach the volatility is what gives you the returns. It's the best performing asset of the last 10 years, and nobody's even close to what it's done. So it's something that at least should be looked into.
Yes. Well, and that's where I want to go with this. Typically at this point in the show, we go through our 6 questions we ask everybody. But what I want to do to wrap up this show is I kind of want to know from you, if I was a doctor coming to you and I just said, where do you want me to start? Somebody listening to this right now, they're driving their car, they're on the treadmill. Where should they start to just get more information about this and to feel like they have some sort of grasp on what's going on with this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different outlets. A lot of those exchanges have a lot of really nice educational tutorials on them.
So like the Coinbases
the
and
Coinbases. Yeah. And they sort of really talk about it quite well. YouTube's an amazing,
right. That's where I learned a lot of mine. Yeah.
videos. I mean, there's just but you also have to be careful because, there's a lot of ulterior motives, a lot of people trying to sell you things. That's fine. I mean, I'm okay with capitalism. That's all good. But just, be aware that, if you're there for educational purposes, YouTube is a really, really good spot to go. And
have you looked at Whiteboard Finance?
Yes.
I like those guys a lot. Like
yeah.
That's very easy to understand those.
Yeah, my son loves that. I mean, yeah, and it's just they just distill it down so nicely. It's just I think I highly recommend those guys. And there's some other how would I say, newsletter type folks out there that also try to send out a lot of information on the crypto. And so that I think the first space would go YouTube. That's where I would go.
That's awesome. That's very good. Okay. And with that being said, how do people reach out to you if they have questions, if they want to do some follow-up, and maybe even do one of the audits we talked about, find out, maybe somebody's out there thinking, I'm concerned that maybe I am being charged too much, or I'm not getting as good a returns as I could. How do they reach out to you and ask those questions?
Yeah, I'm available by email. My email address is Mart, M-A-R-T, as in like Walmart, at macro, MACRO-wealth.com. And I'm always open to answering any questions that you may have. You can even text me. Some people get scared about often texts, but it doesn't bother me. My cell is 847-363-5502. And I'd be more than happy to help you sort of bridge your way into this new space. It's
I love it.
One that, as I said, it's a lot of fun. And once you get down the rabbit hole, you won't need me. You'll be so excited. You'll be on your own in some respects.
Well, it's great. That's one of the reasons why I want to have you on, Mart, is to talk about this, because I think it's just so important for us to know. Part of the goal for this show is always to help people be more proactive, productive, and profitable, right? And so this really checks off a couple of those things. The proactive about, hey, this is going to be something in the future. I can easily envision the future in the next 5 to 10 years where almost everyone, or the majority of people, are accepting crypto in one form or another for their practice, and good for them, like to help it grow. Have you ever, you never think about this, but it's not like I can pay for your services in a stock. And the brilliance of this is that if you were to pay me in crypto and I just left it there, that crypto is going to automatically grow on its own. Like it's got its own opportunity to expand. Whereas you give me $1, well, like you said earlier, you swipe your dollar, in the credit card machine. I'm paying some fees. It's already not $1. it's already less than $1, and it's not going to grow from there unless I go and physically or have my people put it into a fund or some sort of investment. That's a really interesting thing to think about. That have we ever had a time before where your currency that you exchange is automatically growing, even if you left it by itself?
Yeah, I mean, that's when I made the comment before. I would love for my patients to pay me in that. Because and to your point, I mean, with inflation the way it is, I mean, your money essentially is going to disappear in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
If inflation continues on, it's on the path that it is, and let's hope it does not. Of course, nobody wants that, but it's just one of those things that you don't want to get too political on things, but you just can't be spending money like drunken sailors.
Right.
And expect that, it's just going to go away.
Right.
It's the history of money is, it repeats itself, and empires come down based on people's inability to manage their own personal finances. I mean, all Americans don't manage their finances the way they do, but it seems to be okay for them. So
yeah, totally agree. Wow. Well, Mart McClellan, thank you so much for being here again. It's just really awesome to have you and your wisdom. And please, everybody, if you have any questions at all, if you just want to know, like, if you're doing what's right, reach out to Mart and see if there's any way that they can help you, because I'm sure they can. Thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Always great, Dino. Thanks a bunch.
Well, everybody, thanks again for being here for another episode of the Propreneur Podcast. I know this was a little different, but I'm really glad to be able to bring this information to you because I do think it's important. And as I said a moment ago, our goal here is always to help you be more proactive, productive, and profitable. And I believe that learning more about crypto really ticks all three of those boxes. So thank you for listening, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much again for listening to the Propreneur Podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. Also, if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast as a guest or know somebody who you think would be, go ahead and email us at dino@dinowatt.com. Again, thanks for support. We'll see you on the next episode.